What's up, all you beautiful people? Today, we're talking about The Last of Us. Once again, episode 8. And man, it's a goodie. Going into this, full spoilers, all that good stuff. Just want to make sure that I say that at the beginning of every video because I know that I have forgotten. But anyway, so full spoilers. Just gonna kind of go into my initial thoughts. And then we're going to go into a quick plot recap. So this is easily my favorite episode, hands down. I mean, without a doubt. I think from what I've been hearing, most people kind of agree and think the same thing. The show, I think I've already said it a couple times in some of my other videos, but this episode for sure solidified this show being maybe my favorite show of all time. I don't know. It's up there. It's top 3 for sure. This episode also solidified how goated HBO is and just how good this show is in general. This is just a great show, even without having played the video games, with all that prior knowledge and all that, and I know I could say that because that's what my friends are saying. The show is amazing. This episode, I mean, I talked about Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey in episode 7. I don't know, it's whenever they go and find the Jackson town, how they really decided to pull out their acting chops. Joel, when he's whimpering about how he can't protect Ellie, and then Ellie telling Joel that he's one of the only people that's ever stayed around with her, and everybody leaves except for fucking you, that whole scene. And then I think in this episode they just took it to a whole nother level. It just shows how good Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal are. Their acting just seems to get better as the show goes along. I mean, obviously they probably kind of fill into their character a little bit, kind of get everything flowing, and they bring it out in this episode. Bella Ramsey, obviously this is another episode that's really based around her because that's just the nature of the episode and how horrifying it is. We'll go into kind of the plot because I think this is always the easiest way for me to talk about my thoughts on the episode. Basically what we do is we open with Ellie still trying to console Joel because obviously our last week's episode was Left Behind, where it was just Ellie and her friend Riley in the mall. Basically there was Joel and Ellie in it just a tiny bit. We move on and we come back to Joel still kind of comatose in the basement. He's not looking too good. And it's kind of hard to tell what they did with timing here. I don't know if they were just in this basement for a couple days or however long it was, because I know in the game it's months. Like I said before, like winter didn't start and come along until Joel was in the basement, and I'm pretty sure Ellie was feeding them and taking care of them for months before she runs into David like she does in this episode. And this, it seems like it's only a few days. Still cool. I mean, this episode probably has one of the closest adaptations directly to the game as a whole episode and a whole arc in the game of the whole series. There's very minimal changes on it. Ellie is going out and trying to hunt and get food because obviously they're starving, and Ellie is the only one that can do anything because Joel's struggling. It's so funny watching her walk around with the hunting rifle that's clearly too big for her. She can't even put the stock up to her shoulder. She ends up finding a buck and she kills it, and then she runs into these two seemingly random strangers. This is where we meet David. For me, it was definitely my favorite arc in the entire show, or entire video game, so that's why I was so excited when this episode was coming along, because if they nail this and they do this perfect, then the show did it. I mean, with everything that they've had so far, all they really had to do was make this episode great and then just basically finish the season finale next week, which is a short one, which is going to be kind of weird. We get introduced to David, who, man, things just keep rolling and rolling along once you meet David. It starts out as this guy like, oh, could this guy possibly be good? I want to know what your thoughts are in the comments down below, because I know that most of the people who are watching this haven't played the game. I want to know what you guys thought about David. Did you guys think at all for a moment that David could be a good guy, or did you guys know that he was going to be some psychotic psychopath the whole time? I'm really interested to see what you guys thought about that, because I really kind of wish that I had fresh eyes for this to see what I thought experiencing this for the first time, because it just, I mean, him being a pedophile, a cannibal, and this weird dude who seems like he's like worshipping the cordyceps or something, like things just get weird. It just escalates so quickly. So anyways, she meets up with them, and then she basically has, that's the other thing I wanted to say that I fucked up on. So my bad. A few episodes ago, I believe it was still the same, the Jackson episode 2. The guy that I said was in the face mask that I thought was Troy Baker, apparently it wasn't. I just fucked that up. My bad. The guy standing next to David, who is like his right-hand man and then gets hatcheted in the neck at the end of the episode, that's Troy Baker. Troy Baker is the guy that, the voice actor of Joel in the video game. So it was cool to actually see him have a bigger, more legitimate role in this, because I was kind of let down by his little, what I thought was his cameo in that other episode. Anyways, they send Troy Baker back to go get medicine, and Ellie will give him the deer and all this stuff. And then this is where we get this really eerie, kind of not knowing what's going on, a little conversation between Ellie and David where they're sitting there and talking, and then Ellie almost giggles at one point, her and David, and you kind of think, oh, maybe he's doing something, and then her talking to him about being a preacher and them having their weird cult and him admitting like, yeah, I guess he kind of got me on that. And then the reveal, which happens in the game, you're fighting off a bunch of infected. That's kind of how you become a little bit closer with David in the game. But I don't think there's infected in this episode again. It's so crazy how few infected there are. They're having their conversation. David brings up that, yeah, I sent out a search party of 4 guys to go and try to find food or scavenge in a town over. And I sent out 4 and only 3 came back. And they said that there was a older man with a little girl out there who was the ones that killed the guy. And then you kind of sit back, you're like, oh shit, this guy knows. And so then you don't really know what his plans are after that, because then Troy Baker comes in. I don't remember his actual name in the show, so I'm just going to call him Troy Baker. But Troy Baker comes in, and obviously he's got the gun to Ellie, and David tells him to put it down. So you're like, what the fuck? What is this David guy planning? Like, what's his deal, and what's going on here? They move along. Ellie runs out and gives Joel the medicine and is trying to help him. And then you realize that guy is that guy is a father and has a wife, and they're very distraught and upset about it, and that's what they were crying about in the beginning of the episode, was one of the guys that they lost and all this stuff. And then you see kind of the inkling of David being a bit of a psychopath, because you kind of learn, I guess it's kind of insinuated still at this point, but they're feeding them meat, and they specifically ask, they're like, hey, what is this? They're like, oh, it's venison or whatever, and they mention how they can't bury the father because the ground's too cold and frozen. All this stuff that's just foreshadowing for what's going to happen later in the episode and how just fucked up it is. But we have David basically just make a stance and tell that the daughter of the dad that died to shut the fuck up, and that he's her father now. God, it gets so weird. It's so unsettling. But that actor, whatever his name is, just kills the role as this freaky, evil, horrible dude. He sends out a search party to start trying to find Joel and Ellie. Ellie tries to distract them by running away on the horse, and then they shoot the horse. Super sad. So she collapses and she gets captured by them, and then they send the other guys to go and find Joel. But Ellie gets taken back to the cage. Joel basically is just barely existing, and you can see the way that Pedro Pascal acts physically when he has to kill the guy that comes in the basement, because you can tell that he can still just barely stand. And he has to sneak up on that guy and get the cheap shot on him by stabbing the knife into his neck, and just basically just leaning on him and using all his body weight as a tool to kill this guy, because he knows he can't like actually fight him straight up, and it's just so intense to watch. And then you finally get to see the savagery of Joel in this episode later too, when he starts torturing, but we're not going to get to that yet. We come back to Ellie in the cage, and David basically kind of explaining everything to her and like why he wants her. He basically wants her to be kind of like his wife and his co-leader, and it's very weird. So he's a pedophile, wants to marry this 14-year-old girl. So that's already horrible. Ellie ends up finding the ear, or seeing the ear on the ground, and finds out that they're cannibals. Things just keep escalating, and they have this really, really intense conversation between David and Ellie that's just so horrifying, seeing the psychotic nature in David's eyes and what he's telling her, and how he likes her because they both have violent hearts. And man, it just gives you chills. It's horrible. She ends up breaking his finger, and this is where Bella Ramsey really, at the start of her really showing her acting skills in this episode, when she breaks his finger and then yells like, tell him Ellie is the name of the girl that broke your fucking finger or whatever. And David leaves, and now they're gonna chop her up and eat her because David didn't like all that. And then we come back to Joel, and Joel's got 2 of the guys captured and all tied up. And I remember this scene from the game. It's weird because in the show, they're not making Joel, or even the whole universe, as violent as it is in the game. In the game, it's so much more gnarly consistently, but that's kind of how it is because of the action you have to play. And so you really get to see the brutalness of Joel that everybody's been referring to throughout the series, and like they are the ones that could get the job done because they've done some fucked up shit and all this. And the kneecap of Joel stabbing the knife into this guy and then making him point and then saying it better be the same answer as your friend, and then he goes over to the friend, and the friend's like, I'm not telling you shit. And he's like, okay, it's okay, I believe him. And he just smacks him with the pipe, and you're like, oh God. Joel just does not give a fuck. You can tell how pissed he is and how well Pedro Pascal acts this scene out. And you could just feel it. It's so good. And so we move along and come back, and then Ellie is about to get chopped up by Troy Baker and David on the table. And then she does the whole infected thing. She bites David and then tries to show him that she's infected and saying that David's infected too and all this stuff. And Troy Baker is like, David, are you like, you're infected? And then Ellie takes that moment to grab the hatchet, smack him in the neck with it, and take out Troy Baker. And it is brutal. I watched the post-credits kind of breakdown of the episode and stuff, and like the prosthetics and how they had to do that scene and stuff, and listen to Troy Baker talk about it was, oh man, it's brutal, it's gross. He said it even made him nauseous because they have like a little pressure bag in order to make the blood come out or something, and then when he saw it on himself after they finished filming the scene, it kind of made him a little nauseous, which I can imagine that's how real it looked. So those people nailed it. But she gets away and starts running, and then we get to so The Last of Us isn't a game that really has boss fights. There's like one moment where you fight a bloater for the first time in a school gym in Billstown in the beginning of the game. So that's kind of a boss fight. And then this in the game with this, now what is it? Just a restaurant lodge area? I don't know, whatever that building is that they're in, on fire and fighting David. Because you play as Ellie throughout this whole portion of the game, obviously, because Joel's, comatose. And this is such an intense boss fight. And I know most people didn't like it because it just seemed a little bit tedious. And The Last of Us, like I said, just isn't known for boss fights. It's more for cinematic stuff. I always liked it. But anyways, they're kind of just doing their thing, running around and like just playing a little cat and mouse game and dodging each other and avoiding each other. Ellie's avoiding David. And the place is slowly catching on fire. And you get the really brutal thing of Ellie coming up and stabbing him, and then him taking her down and then saying just the more fucked up shit. You're like, you forget about this part, Ellie. Like my favorite part about this is the violence and all this fucked up stuff. I think that he's like trying to rape her or something. It's something brutal. Then she takes the hatchet to him and smacks him in the neck or shoulder or something, and then takes him down to the ground. And then you have the scene of her doing just like in the game. It's the same exact thing. It doesn't show her hitting his face, I don't think, in the game, but it just shows the blood spraying on your face and how terrified she is and how much she just wants to murder this horrible guy. At least what I assume most people think is that you think Joel's going to come in and save her. But no, this is Ellie's kind of journey that she has to take, and she has to take out this guy and finish this. So you see her kill David and get out of the building and be just so traumatized and walking out of there just horrified. The looks, I think that's one of the things that Bella Ramsey does best, is that she really shows her acting chops through her facial expressions and like the physical acting, as opposed to just the dialogue, because you see it in her face. I mentioned that too in the last episode when they turned on the lights and you could see the excitement in her eyes. And in this, you could see the horror in her eyes and how horrible this was. And I remember in the game when Joel finds Ellie, he gets Ellie off of David right after she's done beating him to shit. And, she's the same thing. It's just in a little bit of different area. They're outside in this and they're in the building in the game. And Ellie's just screaming, "Get off of me," because he thinks somebody else is attacking her. Turns out it's Joel. And then you get the line of "It's okay, baby girl," or whatever. And then tears start flowing for me. It's just such an emotional and intense thing that I think these actors just nailed so well. Then it's simply it's just them walking into I almost said sunset. It's definitely not a walking into the sunset, but walking into the snow and it just kind of fading to black. That's The Last of Us, episode 8, and it is amazing. It's always so weird and unsettling to say how amazing these really fucked up things are that you watch. That's what I've always told people, is that you're watching a good piece of content when it evokes emotion. It doesn't matter what emotion it has to be. I mean, I guess it's whatever they're trying to invoke, but it doesn't matter if it makes you sad, if it makes you happy, if it makes you angry, if it makes you excited. If they're invoking that emotion that they're trying to get you to invoke, then it's some amazing quality content right there. And that's what The Last of Us always did for me, and that's what this show is doing, and that's why I love it so much. Pretty excited for next week. I know it's a shorter episode. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to change, but theoretically, from what I know in the game, there's not that much to put in there. There's one very specific thing that they need to do, and then obviously they need to do the wrap up at the very end, and that's about it. I'm excited as fuck, just like I have been for every episode, every week. The show is amazing. I love it. I'm so glad that HBO did this. I'm so glad that they're the ones that picked it up and not like fucking AMC or something. AMC has some good shows, but like HBO was just always the answer for this, and they did it, and it's amazing. Let me know what you thought about in the episode in the comments down below. Also, let me know what you thought about David. Did you think there was ever a chance of him being a good guy, maybe him helping them get along to their next area or anything like that? Or did you know straight from the beginning? It's hard to know from my perspective, knowing what was going to happen the whole time. But let me know what you thought down in the comments down below, and then give me a like and subscribe.